Do you think sales is a bad word? When you hear the word sales, I wonder what images come to mind. Whatever your relationship is with selling, I'm glad you are here. Let's have a conversation about how to sell like good humans. Hi, and welcome to Conversations with Good Humans. I am your host, Catherine Brown, author of the book, How Good Humans Sell. Welcome, Lawrence. I'm so glad to be talking with you today about why being a good referral giver is so important and why we think it's part of how good humans sell. You and I have talked before about how everyone wants warm leads, okay? Whether you get those from a direct referral from someone, or you have an amazing cultivated email list, or you have very active social media engagement, everybody wants leads. And one of the things that I think that you model is being such a gift to other people because you are a good dot connector. You connect people and you collect people in your orbit of relationships because of the interest you show them in the way that they do business. So I want to reference that. Thank you for that. I have certainly been the recipient of that many times. And that's kind of how I'm teeing up our conversation here today. You and I have talked about how you have three principles that you keep in mind about being a good connector and why it matters. And so would you introduce yourself and would you talk to me a little bit about this principle number one, which is that you encourage people to listen to others with curiosity and imagination?
Yes, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, once again, I'm Lawrence Hackney. Live here in Houston, Texas. I work with corporate accounting departments, and I help them to streamline, streamline the accounting closing cycle, the reporting cycle, and the reconciliation cycle. I do a lot of work with databases, an Excel expert, and other database tools such as Access and SQL Server to help my clients to speed up data intense processes. I love this concept here of listen with curiosity and imagination. Let me share with you a quick story. So I met a young lady, probably about 6 months ago. Her job, she was a recruiter. She was helping one of my clients to fill a role. And it just so happened that she and I had gotten to talking a little bit about her candidate and how she does business and so forth. It just so happened that on Friday, I got a referral from someone in a networking group that I had been involved in, and they had a project that they needed to get completed. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I was swamped. I already had as much capacity as I could fill. But because I had listened to my other friend with curiosity and imagination, I thought, well, golly, this lady is a recruiter. Maybe she can help me find someone to help serve this referral that I had been given. So the referral came to me on Friday afternoon. By Saturday, I had already made contact with my other friend. By Sunday, my friend and the referral had made contact. And by Monday, we closed the deal. So that came because I had listened to both parties with curiosity and imagination. My curiosity from the referral side was, would you be interested if I could help maybe supervise this person, if I could get you a dedicated resource, and if it wasn't me? And the other side of the imagination was, well, golly, I have a friend that may have some resources. How can I put those two together? And it so happens that there's some margin in the project that I will actually get a little piece of that. So it worked out to benefit my referral partner, and myself. Typically, that would not have been a situation where, because of how I met this other lady, that I would have even thought of her to do this or to be a referral source. But because I had listened to her with curiosity and imagination, I was able to put those two parties together and have a win-win-win, and a fourth win for the ultimate client that's going to receive the services.
So Lawrence, we've spent a lot of time together, and I love the word curious. I think it's a positive word. It's a non-judgy word. It's a generous word. People might hear us talk about this principle of be sure to listen with curiosity and imagination, and they might think, well, of course, why would I not do that? Or what would the opposite of that be? But in your experience, not everyone is doing this. And so what does it look like to not listen with curiosity or to listen with lack of imagination?
So, and I can use myself as an example, if you will. So I am a CPA by training, and in the name of my business is CPA. And a lot of times people will already have a connotation of what a CPA does. And even after we've had an hour one-on-one or even have known each other for some time, they still have that connotation that I either do taxes or bookkeeping, which neither one of those things I do. And you would never hear me say that in a one-on-one that I do those things. So I actually did have a one-on-one recently with somebody that has known me for a couple of years and still referred to me as being the person he would call if he needed tax work done. So this person clearly was not listening, but he just wasn't listening. Let's just stop there. But this person really just had his own interest in mind, because in how that manifests itself was we had a 2-hour meeting, and I think I maybe spoke 10 minutes, and this person spoke the other hour and 50 minutes, if you will. So having some balance, obviously, between how much you're speaking and how much you're listening. And when you're listening, really be listening. Don't be thinking about what am I going to say next. Listen to what that person is saying to you, and take some cues from what's going on. They may say something very specific about what they do in their industry that may lead you to think of something else. So I actually have a referral for someone here in this group, or actually an introduction. Let's make a distinction between introduction and referral. But I have an introduction for someone in this group. I was having a meeting with someone on Monday, and this person does rebranding for corporations. So I said to this person, well, golly, would you have any interest in meeting someone that does, customer satisfaction work, because if they're rebranding for a reason. And so that was a little bit of imagination, trying to put two things together that wouldn't normally have gone together. But I said, well, golly, this person does customer satisfaction surveys. Would you be interested in meeting her? And he said, absolutely. So I do have an introduction that I need to get out. Got a large marketing agency, and rebranding is one of his big deals. But those two things don't necessarily just come to mind. You have to be thinking about that. So that was curiosity and imagination.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things that comes to my mind on this principle as well is I heard someone say recently on a podcast I was listening to, they said, when you're in conversations with people, sometimes the more silence, the better. And I was curious about this expression because, boy, when you are new, let's say it's a sales conversation. I mean, when you're new to selling and you ask a question and you're trying to have good open-ended questions to get people to really talk and they don't answer right away, it can be so nerve-wracking because you're thinking, oh, I must have said something wrong, or did I mess up? And my experience is that most of the time, the other person is simply thinking. And that's exactly a great thing to have happen. That silence is such a gift because they're thinking, you're thinking. And I have taught people many times, if you feel anxious during that time, a way to start moving into that so that you are listening carefully and giving people space for that meaningful conversation is you might need to count in your head. You might need to count to 10 and decide, I'm not even going to rephrase the question until I count to 10 in my head. And even now, I don't have to count anymore. I just wait and wait and wait. And eventually they'll answer. And that takes confidence to do that, but it's something we can get to with practice. And that's the opposite of being anxious to reply and be only thinking about what you're going to say next.
That's correct.
All right. So the next principle that we're going to talk about is the idea of being a resource beyond your own discipline. So I think that for salespeople, this might sound crazy to some people listening because they have practiced listening for clues about how they might help, or maybe a favorite partner they refer to. But I think that you're exceptional about this in thinking about how to be a resource far beyond your own discipline. So would you talk about this principle too a little bit?
Yes, this is another one of my favorite principles. When I talk about this part, I refer to another person in a group that I've been involved with for about 5 or 6 years. This person runs a workspace, if you will. It's for temporary office space, not necessarily like a open workspace, but individual offices. And he's worked for Regis before, and now he's works for a private company that owns 2 buildings here in Houston. And he told us in our group, and he's told us this a couple of times, says, my business is not one that I would expect to get a lot of referrals for. Now, if you do know people that don't want to meet at Starbucks and they want a conference room, then fine, give me a call. But the reason why I'm involved in these groups is so that I can be a resource to my tenants. He is the go-to person for his tenants. If small businesses, a lot of startups, are working out of his offices, questions like, golly, I really wish I had a better accountant. Well, golly, I know somebody. Or I wish, my IT services were a little bit faster and better. Well, I know somebody. Or any kind of thing, he is the go-to person. And what he has said to us is that makes him so sticky to his tenants that even if he never gets a referral from anyone in the group, the fact that he knows us and knows the people in the group, that when one of his tenants comes to him and says they have a problem, that he can solve it. And that is why he is in the group. He's strictly in it to give. Now, he's gaining clearly by being that go-to person and being known as that go-to person. And I have found that a lot here for myself. When people have a problem, I want to be known as, 1, I'm a trusted advisor, and 2, a problem solver. So people will come to me quite often and say, golly, do you know anybody that does X, Y, Z? And typically the answer is yes. Not only yes, but maybe there's 2 or 3 that I may know in any given field. But that makes people call me. Even if they don't need me for my service, they call me and ask me for things. And then it may come up, oh, golly, you know what? Can you come by and take a look at this particular report I need built? And then boom, that's an introduction for me to do work. But even if that never happens, people have me top of mind for, I've got a problem. Let me ask Lawrence, maybe he can help me solve it. So, and that again goes back to the listening with imagination and curiosity. You've got to be able to think like that in order to be able to, when somebody asks you about a problem, to be able to think, well, golly, how could I help you solve it?
And Lawrence, I want to ask you about that because I'm also connecting that first and second principle. And I'm thinking, if this isn't kind of obvious to someone and but they have a growth mindset and they say, I want to get better at this and practice this. Do you have a favorite question that gets people to share what's going on so they can listen, so you get a sense of where you can make that connection? Because not everyone will just volunteer other problems they're having. How do you get them to share that so you can be a resource?
Well, that's a great question. What I have found is that for whatever reason, people just like to tell me things. And part of it, I think, is because I am willing to listen. So what tends to happen is just being in someone's presence, people want to talk. And if you are listening, then you can start asking questions about, okay, well, what does that mean? And Catherine, you're really good about that. So sometimes, you'll ask me, how are you doing? And I'll say, oh, I'm doing great. And, this kind of this standard comeback, and you ask, well, what makes it so great? And then I have to think, it's like, oh, golly, I just said that because that's what everybody says. But you asked me that question, what makes it great? And it's like, oh, well, and this is why. And then we get into a further conversation about that. So you're really good about that. But listen, again, just kind of listen to what people are saying, and you may hear things. If it's someone that you know well, you may hear them say, well, gal, their tone may be different than what you're used to. So you may want to ask, okay, well, what's with the tone? Why you sound like that you're down, or they're going to tell you, I've got to cut this short because I'm busy. Oh, what's going on? So this, you made me open up a can of worms here. I have some of you know this, I have a little bit of a pet peeve about automated calendars. Okay. If we've done business before and it's just normal recourse, then sure, I'm good with that. But there is a lot, in my opinion, to be gained from that banter of what day is good for you. Well, Tuesday's not good because I've got a board meeting. Oh, you've got a board meeting. Okay, what are you able to get your reports done for that? Are you stressed about that or whatever? Boom, that's an opportunity I could ask about if I wanted to. Well, Wednesday's no good because it's month-end close. Oh, do you all struggle with month-end close? Maybe I could help you there. So just that, even that little bit of banter to try to figure out what day is good for you, you're telling me what you're doing and what's got your attention in the next 3 days, 2 days, or 2 weeks, or whatever time period we said that we were going to try to meet in. So that is one way that I kind of tease out what can be happening to a person, because they're going to tell you what's going on if you're asking about a calendar.
Lawrence, you and I also share a friend, our friend Brian, mutual friend Brian, actually has a commitment that most weekdays he makes what he calls 3 high calls every day. And I think this is phenomenal. I still have not incorporated this in my own calendar. I do make business development follow-up calls most days of the week. And I am certain to ask about personal things going on and remember what they shared with me last time. But he makes 3 calls a day simply to ask how people are doing. And isn't it interesting that I think you and I would count him one of the best referral givers also?
Absolutely.
Because he's constantly uncovering what is going on with someone and then connecting the dots, which of course in turn, in reciprocity, makes us keep him in mind because we like him and we feel like we owe him because he's amazing. He's constantly coming up with these referrals.
That is correct. He's really good about that.
That's really cool. So I also hear, I think one of my favorite points you just made is that you have to be willing to listen, which means you have to show up, which means you have to make time to show up. So you have to work backwards and say, is this something I'm committed to doing? So I think that's really great, Lawrence. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So our last principle is really interesting. I call this a Lawrenceism. So talk to us about principle number 3, activity breeds activity. What do you mean by that?
What I found is the more, this is going to be kind of, it's going to sound kind of obvious, but I'll say it anyway. The more activity I do, the more activity shows up. So I have a couple of concepts. One, I call it the push down pop up concept. So some of you know I do business here in Houston, and I also do business in Dallas. And I also do I can do business nationwide, but those are the two places that I actually keep a footprint, is Houston and Dallas. And I found it interesting that the more time I spend in Dallas, the more things pop up in Houston. The more time I spend in Houston, the more things pop up in Dallas. So that just tells me that activity is breeding activity, and it may not be in the places that you're actually putting in the activity, but something showed up on the back end, just seemingly randomly. But I think there is method to the universal madness, if you will. But activity breeds activity. So we had talked when Catherine and I talked before about Newton's law of physics, that an object in motion tends to stay in motion, but the corollary to that is an object at rest tends to stay at rest. So it works both ways. The more active you are, the more activity is going to show up, but the least active you are, or if you are at rest, then nothing will happen. So just kind of watch how that works for yourself. So you may be spending a lot of time with one particular prospect, and then all of a sudden, someone that you hadn't talked to in 2 years calls you. But if you're not working with that other prospect, then you've got silence. Nothing's going on anywhere. So just being in motion, being active, doing one-on-ones, being a part of groups like this, get to know each other. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the more activity that you have, that activity will breed new activity, and it may show up in places that you didn't even expect.
It reminds me, Lawrence, that most Fridays we send out an email marketing piece and give away free advice, and then also I put my upcoming events and offers, calls to action in those emails. And one of my favorite things that happens pretty regularly is that people reply to it, and they don't always reply to the specific call to action, but being in their email box and just having that activity there means that not only do I stay top of mind, I would argue, even if they don't open it, you still have your name sitting there, but also they will ask things that have nothing to do with the content of the email. It's just so funny, but it is about that motion I think you're talking about. So it's one of my commitments as I've been working with my team about 2022. We're going to keep going. We have a whole system put in place to share that content and tie it to LinkedIn and bring those conversations back around. And we're going to keep going with it because it's activity that seems to lead to other activity, even if it's not always a straight line where we every time can say, yes, we got all of our enrollment from people clicking through to that. It still seems to work overall.
That is correct. As much as I say these things, I just need to do more of it. Again, activity breeding activity, doing more one-on-ones, getting to know more people, and again, just letting people know that I can be a resource for them. And I think that's good for everyone to just let people know, hey, I can be a resource to you because you've listened with curiosity and imagination, because you have activity going on in your network. So this has been great for me.
Lawrence, thank you so much. I know that you mean it when you say that you want to get even better at this and make more time for it. I do want our listeners to know, though, on an average month, how many introductions or straight out warm referrals, if you add those two together. So we're differentiating between certainty that there's a real need that you think someone is qualified to fit, and just two people you think should meet each other. If you combine those two categories together on any given month, how many of these are you typically doing?
Oh, it could be anywhere from 10, 15, 20. And a lot of times what happens is I wind up thinking of more than I actually do. So sometimes it's a bit of a stretch, but there's still the potential so that they don't actually I don't actually put the two together, but at least 15 or so a month that I'm actually sending somebody or people emails to meet each other.
That's so awesome. I know you want to be even better at this. That is so much more than most people can answer, I think, Lauren. So thank you for leading in that and showing that that is a way that good humans sell. I know your intention is not only to have that come back to you with leads for you, and I hope that that does sometimes happen for you.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you for this. Thank you for today, and talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Great stuff.
I'm so glad you joined us today. If you would like me to come and speak with your organization about how to sell like a good human, please contact me through the website howgoodhumanssell.com. Thanks, and talk with you again.